The scent of old paper and dust was my oldest companion, a perfume more familiar than any other. As the solitary librarian of the Argus Point Archive, my world was one of quiet aisles and forgotten histories, bounded by the salt-stained windows that looked out upon the endless churning gray of the sea. It was a life of gentle melancholy, a perfect reflection of the isolated lighthouse that stood sentinel on the jagged cliffs, its light long extinguished. The book was an anomaly, a volume of celestial navigation charts bound in water-stained leather that had no acquisition record. It felt heavier than it should. As I turned a brittle page, seeking its catalog number, a soft thud echoed in the silent reading room. Nestled in a cavity cut into the pages was a key. It was not iron or brass, but a cold, dark metal that seemed to drink the light, etched with spirals that made my eyes ache if I stared too long. It felt less like a tool, and more like a fragment of a sentence spoken in a dead language. The key hummed in my palm, a vibration so faint I felt it in my teeth. It pulled me, not with force, but with a terrible, silent gravity. I followed its call out of the archive, across the wind-scoured headland, to the base of the abandoned lighthouse. A door I had never noticed before, seamless and almost invisible in the stone, waited. The key slid into a lock that wasn't there until it was, turning with a sound like a great clock winding down. The room was a sphere of perfect stillness. No dust motes danced in the sliver of light from the door. The air was cold and tasted of ozone and old roses. In the center, on a simple wooden desk, lay a stack of letters, neatly tied with twine. My breath caught. The handwriting on the topmost envelope was my grandfather's, Alistair Reed, the brilliant vanished physicist my family never discussed. My dearest Clara, the first began. If you are reading this, the key has chosen you, as I knew it would. Your mind, like mine, seeks the seams in the world's tapestry. His letters were a confession, a slow unraveling of sanity and genius. He wrote not of stopping time, but of folding it. The lighthouse wasn't a beacon for ships, but a focal point for temporal tides. His great work, the Chronos-Sink, was here, in this room. He described moments of breathtaking beauty, watching the same wave crash against the cliff for a week, seeing a bloom of bioluminescent algae hang in the water like a permanent constellation. But the later letters grew frantic. The fold has a memory, he warned. It remembers the moments pressed into it, and they echo. The experiment is not an act, Clara. It is a relationship, and I have offended it. The final letter was a single trembling line. Take the key, seal the door, never return, it is hungry, and I have stayed too long at the feast. As the weight of his words settled in my bones, I heard them. The whispers. They weren't in the air, but in the space between my thoughts, a susurrus of half-formed words and stolen sighs. A fragment of my grandmother's laughter, from a memory I didn't own. A phrase from a book I'd read yesterday repeated backwards. The whispers were the echoes he'd written of, the ghosts of moments trapped in the fold. They were curious, brushing against my mind like cold silk, and then a clearer voice, thin with exhaustion and cosmic distance, threaded through the chaos. Clara, go, now. Grandfather, he wasn't lost. He was here, stretched across the frozen moment of his own ambition. The experiment wasn't over. It was waiting. The Chronos-Sink wasn't a machine. It was the room itself, and it had tasted his lifetime. Now, it perceived me, a new pulse in the stillness. This was the truth, laid bare not in his letters, but in the awful, beautiful silence of the sphere. To leave was to condemn him to an eternal, solitary vigil inside a single second, to let his sacrifice be swallowed by the sea's rumor, to stay, to try to unpick the fold. That was to offer myself as a new thread to be woven into its static tapestry. The whispers grew more insistent, not threatening, but inviting. They offered a terrible peace, no more loss, no more decay, just the exquisite, frozen now. My hand closed around the cold key. The love I felt was not a simple granddaughterly affection, but a profound, aching romance for the magnitude of his folly and his courage. He had tried to court eternity itself, and it had kept him as its lonely bridegroom. To leave was a kind of betrayal. To stay was a kind of marriage. I looked at the door, a sliver of my gray, windy, dying world. Then I looked at the perfect, silent sphere, humming with stolen time and the faint, desperate love of the man trapped within it. The romance was not in a kiss, but in a choice. To share a damnation, to keep a vigil across the uncrossable gulf of frozen seconds. I let the key fall from my hand. It struck the floor without a sound. The whispers sighed in unison, a chorus of welcome. I walked to the center of the room, to his desk, and sat in the empty chair. The door behind me began to fade, not to black, but to a permanent golden hour of a day that never ended. "I'm here, grandfather," I whispered into the sweet, suspended air. The experiment at last would have its second subject, and our forever together began.